Here we go. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanajari. Yamunatira Vanajari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Jasura Nandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Giridhari ki jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Puri Vrajika Jaja Shuldra Shri Srimad is divine grace. Vaicharanara Vinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Puri Vrajika Jaja Shuldra Shri Srimad is divine grace. Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Samveda Bhakti ki jai, Go Premanandi, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, assembled devotees, all glories, Sisi Guru and Sri Gauranga. Vishmadaya Krishna Mastaya Guru Lishmati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Gauravani Pracharini Vishesha Shunyavadi Vasyatya Shata. So this morning we read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 8th Canto, Chapter 16, Verse 20. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vāsudevaya. Upatistasva Purusham Bhagavantam Janardanam Sarvabhuta Guha Vasam Vāsudevam Jagadgurum Upatishtasva Purusham Bhagavantam Janardanam Sarvabhuta Guhavasam Vāsudevam Jagadgurum Upatishtasva Purusham Bhagavantam Janardanam Sarvabhuta Guhavasam Vāsudevam Jagadgurum Nupaditashva Purusham Bhagavantam Janardanam Sarvabhuta Guhavasam Vāsudevam Jagadgurum. Everyone like to chant? Mini M.
We better start all over.
Anyone else? Upatishtasva Purusham Bhagavantam Janardanam Sarvabhuta Guhavasam Vāsudevam Jagadgurum. Anyone online?
Upatishtasva Purusham
Upatishtasva Purusham
Bhagavantam Janardanam
Bhagavantam Janardanam
Sarvabhuta Guhavasam
Sarvabhuta Guhavasam
Vāsudevam Jagadgurum.
Vāsudevam Jagadgurum. Okay, word for word. Upatishtasva. Just try to worship Purusham, the Supreme Person, Bhagavantam, the Personality of Godhead, Janardanam, who can kill all the enemies, Sarva Bhuta Guhavasam, living within the core of the heart of everyone, Vāsudevam, Vāsudeva, Krishna, who is all-pervading and is the son of Vāsudeva. Jagadgurum, the spiritual master and teacher of the whole world. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. My dear Aditi, engage in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the master of everything, who can subdue everyone's enemies, and who sits within everyone's heart. Only that Supreme Person, Krishna or Vāsudeva, can bestow all auspicious benedictions upon everyone, for he is the spiritual master of the universe. Purport. With these words, Kaśyapa Muni tried to pacify his wife. Aditi made her appeal to her material husband. Of course, that is nice, but actually a material relative cannot do anything good for anyone. If anything good can be done, it is done by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vāsudeva. Therefore, Kaśyapa Muni advised his wife, Aditi, to begin worshipping Lord Vāsudeva, who is situated in everyone's heart. He is the friend of everyone and is known as Janardhan because he can kill all enemies. These are the three modes of material. There are three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. And above material nature, transcendental to material nature, is another existence which is called Shuddha Sattva. In the material world, the mode of goodness is considered the best, but because of material contamination, even the mode of goodness is sometimes overpowered by the modes of passion and ignorance. But when one transcends the competition between these modes and engages himself in devotional service, he rises above the three modes of material nature. In that transcendental position, one is situated in pure consciousness. Sattvam Vishuddham Vāsudeva Shabditam, Srimad Bhagavatam 4.3.23. Above material nature is the position called Vāsudeva, or freedom from material contamination. Only in that position can one perceive the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vāsudeva. Thus the Vāsudeva condition fulfills a spiritual necessity. Vāsudeva Sarmiti Sa Mahatma Sadulabha, Bhagavad Gita 7.19. When one realizes Vāsudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he becomes most exalted. Paramatma Vāsudeva is situated in everyone's heart, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. The Lord says, Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam pratipurvakam dadhami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted and worship me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Bhagavad Gita 10.10. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hriddeshe Arjuna tishtati. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, O Arjuna. Bhagavad Gita 18.61. And bhoktaram dugdha tapasam sarva loka maheshwaram surhidam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantam richati. The sages, knowing me as the ultimate purpose of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attain peace from the pangs of material miseries. The last verse of the 5th chapter, 529. Whenever one is perplexed, let him take shelter of the lotus feet of Vāsudeva, Krishna, who will give the devotee intelligence to help him surpass all difficulties and return home back to Godhead. Kaśyapa Muni advised his wife to seek shelter at the lotus feet of Vāsudeva, Krishna, so that all her problems would be very easily solved. Thus, Kaśyapa Muni was an ideal spiritual master. He was not so foolish that he would present himself as an exalted personality as good as God. He was actually a bona fide guru because he advised his wife to seek shelter at the lotus feet of Vāsudeva. One who trains a subordinate or disciple to worship Vāsudeva is truly bona fide spiritual master, the truly bona fide spiritual master. The word Jagat Gurum is very important in this regard. Kaśyapa Muni did not falsely declare himself to be Jagat Guru, although he actually was Jagat Guru because he advocated the cause of Vāsudeva. Actually, Vāsudeva is Jagat Guru, as clearly stated here, Vāsudevam Jagat Gurum. One who teaches the instructions of Vāsudeva, Bhagavad Gita, is as good as Vāsudevam Jagat Gurum. But one who does not teach this instruction, as it is, declares himself Jagat Guru, he simply cheats the public. Krishna is Jagat Guru, and one who teaches the instruction of Krishna as it is on behalf of Krishna may be accepted as Jagat Guru. One who manufactures his own theories cannot be accepted. He becomes Jagat Guru falsely. Om Agyan Timirandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksuranminitam Dina Taismai Sri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Dina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadandikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Vanchikapatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Mevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So by your prayers and ardent well wishes, we'll start with that one. I'll try to say something. My request, though, is that someone opens that door a bit. Necesitamos aire fresca. See? So, do you know the number one question? The number one question that every single clergy, doesn't matter if they're a rabbi or a minister or a priest or a panditji or whatever, the number one question they're asked. Yes, people come to them and they ask them this one question. Why am I suffering? That's it. Why am I suffering? Why am I suffering? That's the number one question you have to deal with. And that goes to prove Prabhupada's in the Vedic statement that the material world is a miserable place, Dukkhale Amasashvatam, because that's the number one question, right? It's in other words, everyone's suffering and they're asking, how do I get relief from suffering? Right? Now, I imagine that's the number one thing on everyone's mind. Something's wrong and I'm trying to fix it, right? Maybe I'm comfortable sitting here and I have to wiggle a little bit and squiggle in the chair to make myself comfortable, or move my legs, or open the door because there's not enough air, or I wonder what's for breakfast, I'm hungry. And just one thing after the next, after the next, after the next. The very nature of this material world, it is a place of suffering. And therefore, pious people, everyone's approaching someone. They approach the politician. My dear politician, I'm suffering. If you solve all my problems, I'll vote for you. Right? That's a prayer. So whether it's in any field of endeavor. People get married and they think their spouse will solve all their problems. Have they got it backwards? Ask any married person. So actually you should never go into any relationship thinking this person, it could be marriage or any relationship, this person is going to solve all my problems. That's unhealthy. That's very unhealthy. Whether it's work or pleasure or this or that, it's actually unhealthy. But that's what's going on because we're all suffering. So the point is, back to the original point, all clergy are bombarded by this question from their congregation. Why am I suffering? Why am I suffering? Why am I suffering? So here at Kaśyapa Muni, Aditi is suffering like anything because they've all been evicted. Has anyone here ever been evicted? Okay. Imagine how it is. Sometimes you see that people out on the street. Every once in a while you see that in front of these apartments, couch and everything. They got evicted. You can only go so long. I think in about 3 months. Were you a landlord? How much time do people get before the sheriff comes and tells them, you got to get out?
Well, you can give them a 3-day notice to pay or quit, but then there's the eviction process.
Right. And that goes on, right?
It could go on for like 90 days.
Right.
It just depends on how clever the tenant is.
Right. So it just goes on, but sooner or later, they turn off the gas, the electricity, hanging on. Then sooner or later, there's that notice. Change the locks, all kinds of stuff. Like you said, depends on how clever they are, but usually about 30. Then there you see them. They're out there. They pushed it as far as they could. They got evicted. So no one likes to get evicted. We're all going to get evicted from these bodies. Did you know that? Sooner or later, you got to go. Like that. It doesn't matter what you say. So the point is, they're suffering. Kaśyapa Muni they were the demigods. You can say they were evicted in one sense, that Bali Maharaj took over, and there was no use in fighting. So they just all disappeared, but they had to hide in different places. And as a mother, she's very concerned. I don't think this is out of her desire for comfort and opulence and royal life. She's also very much concerned for her children. And that's their rightful place, and now it's been usurped and so on. So she's approaching Kaśyapa Muni, her husband, and he's also a great sage, one of the greatest sages, Kaśyapa Muni, and asking, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Now, when people come to you and say, I'm suffering like anything, what kind of answer should you give? That depends on two things. The consciousness of the person, where they're at, who's asking the question, that, and actually the person what can you say? What do you actually know? Because some people, they don't know anything about the cause of suffering and actually how to become free from suffering, and they give all kinds of advice, and nothing really changes, right? The basic advice in the material world when you're suffering is get back out there and keep fighting, isn't it? In different forms. Just keep going, get back out there. It's kind of like I give the example, just like in the boxing ring, right? You're getting beaten up like anything, bing, the bell goes off, ding, and you sit down in the chair and you look at black eyes and this and that, and the coach puts a sponge in your mouth, some water, and puts a Band-Aid, put your eye back together and this and that. And they punch it, get back out there. Round 10, round 5, just get back out there. Yeah, you can do it. So that's material advice. You can do it. Just keep going. Just keep going. Just keep going. But the point is, you're in the boxing ring and your opponent's the material nature. You're never going to win. You're never going to win. She's always going to win. That's just the way that it's set up. So, but the point is, sometimes people aren't ready to hear transcendental advice. Did you know that? You ever notice that? And even there's different levels of transcendental advice. Like in the beginning, Prabhupada says, someone could say, what is Srila Prabhupada talking about here in the beginning of the purport? Because he says that Aditi made her appeal to her material husband. Of course, that is nice, but actually a material relative cannot do anything good for anyone. Wait a second. We may have all experienced our relatives have done something good for us, helped us out in many, many different ways. So what's Srila Prabhupada saying here? Well, two things. One is ultimately whatever good anyone is doing from us is ultimately coming from Krishna, is inspiration. But also we're talking in the ultimate good. The ultimate good. Just like, let's see, let's get a Krishna conscious alternate of this. Because there's a saying that you can teach a person to grow vegetables. Instead of just giving them vegetable, teach them how to grow vegetables. Right? That you're actually solving the problem. So the real solution, because Aditi is fully qualified, and Kaśyapa Muni is fully qualified, he's giving the full answer. The full answer. But we have to be careful in our preaching that we don't say so. We have to ease people into what they can hear about Krishna consciousness. And sometimes it just may be material advice. Oh, you do this and that. Maybe you should move somewhere else maybe you should move closer to a temple, or maybe you should do this and that, or maybe you should see a psychiatrist, maybe you should see a counselor, maybe you should get a different job. That's not in itself transcendental advice, but it's helpful to make a person peaceful in their lives so they can eventually understand Krishna consciousness. And then there is Krishna consciousness on different levels, and you have to be careful what you tell people. And the Sankirtan devotees know that. You're on the table, and all kinds of people come up to you, and you have to pick exactly what you're going to say to them according to their ability to understand and appreciate, because you want people to appreciate. If they don't appreciate, then it becomes, the 9th offense against the holy name, to preach to the faithless, right? Then you'd actually destroy their faith. You actually destroy their faith, and they become offensive and so on. Then they're actually worse off than when they met you. You're a devotee. They come to you. You have a chance to help them their Krishna consciousness, and if we're not careful, they actually go away worse off than when they met us. That's not a good thing. So the devotee should be better off. It may only be a little tiny bit, but at least they should be better off after being a devotee than worse off. So we have to be careful what we say to people. But fortunately, Aditi is ready to hear the whole thing, and she'll appreciate it because of her punya. That's what it is. A person's punya. In the previous lives, Agyatu Sukriti or whatever, they're just ready to hear about Krishna. And the Sankirtan devotees, those come back practically daily with all kinds of stories like that. People were just ready to hear about Krishna. In fact, I was telling Dvijamani that Nadi Bihari and Kripamai were with them the other day, and they were talking about different kinds of preaching, and one was spending some time with Dvijamani out at the table, just watching him charm the conditioned souls and preach to them, and they were very enlivened by his association. But she also told a story. They went to the Sadhu Sangha there on the East Coast, and on the way back, I guess it was probably Nadi Bihari, Kripamai in the middle, and then a woman was in the next seat. And the whole flight back, that woman was asking all kinds of questions about Krishna consciousness. We said, well, how did she know you're a devotee? And then Nadi said, well, she had her hand in her bead bag. That's a good giveaway. But the woman goes, are you Hare Krishna? And boom. And for, whatever it was, a few hours, that woman was just asking so many questions about birth and death and the soul and on and on and on. She said it was like a preaching engagement for a few hours. And she only had one book, a small, because she asked you about some more small book, Gita, right? Because she had one that she had for many, many years, but she took out a few pictures that were dear to her and gave the woman the book. But this woman was ready to hear the whole story. Ready to hear the whole story for hours. Sometimes you meet someone, they'll just, maybe 2-3 minutes or 1 or 2 words is about all they can handle. But some people, it's like they're ready to hear everything. It's sincerely, and they're actually able to hear it. They've actually acquired some kind of punya or mercy of devotees in the previous life, and they can actually appreciate everything. And that's devotees, Sankirtan devotees and preachers, they pray for such people to show up, and Krishna sends them. Krishna sends, they're out there. There's so many people ready to hear about Krishna consciousness. Why? Because everyone's asking the number one question. Why am I suffering? Right? Even Sanatana Goswami, there's a famous pastime in Chaitanya Charitamrita. When he met Lord Chaitanya, he said that, people call me very, very learned, Panditji, and he was, but, I'm not, because I don't know why I'm suffering. Why am I suffering the threefold miseries of material existence, and how can I become free from them? Why am I suffering in this material world, and how to become free? So this is the big question. This is the beginning of one's spiritual life. If one is not feeling that the material world is a place of suffering, then spiritual life doesn't become manifest in one's heart. It just doesn't become manifest. In fact, then scriptures and religion, what are they used for? Enjoying in the material world. And that's about 90-something% of all religions and religious people all over the world. All over the world. Because they feel that the material world is the place of enjoyment. And if there is a God, then God's his job is to make us happy in this material world, just like a parent's job is to make the kids happy. So, but those who understand, no, the material world is a miserable place. There must be some place beyond this. I don't belong here. Then they're ready for a spiritual life. They're ready for spiritual life. So, boy, a lot to be said here. Prabhupada quotes some wonderful verses about Krishna in the heart, because that's brought up here, and that ultimately only Krishna can help us, and he's the one who, because he's qualified to help us. He's just like, here's an example. Well, I'll just tell you right out, and this is something for anyone who's training to be a lifeguard. Anyone who ever trained to be a lifeguard, was a good swimmer? Okay. The first thing they teach you, the very first thing that were you? Okay. He likes to swim though, right? Okay. I should give him the name Matsya instead of Sankarshan. But the very first thing they teach you when you want to learn to be a lifeguard, you know what it is? How to swim? No, you should know how to swim first. What? Have you ever saved someone? No, that's something. Not a question. They're going to teach you something. The very first thing they teach you to ask yourself about the situation. Yeah, are you going to die by trying to save this person? In other words, don't go in there if you think there's any chance that you're not going to come out, because it's very, very difficult. Because I didn't become a lifeguard. I had to get a lifeguard merit badge as a Boy Scout. And it was pretty grueling. And they teach you how people try to kill you in the water because they're panicking, how they jump on top of you and this and that, and you learn all these moves. And so basically, I learned from that course, I'm never going to try to save anyone. At least swim out and save someone. You got to be a really strong swimmer. Sometimes you have to like knock them in the head and grab them in a certain move, or they can't struggle and try to get back. So where am I going with this? Oh, the point is that Krishna can save us all. We're all drowning in the material world. Who's going to save us? Another example in the Bhagavatam is if you see a dog. You ever see dogs swimming out there? Do you ever go swimming in Doggy Beach? No, you just stay here. So if you see dogs, you go down to OB, I think is the closest one, Doggy Beach in Coronado. They let the dogs run into the ocean. They swim. And dogs swim, and some dogs have a curved tail. So if you think, oh, I'll grab that tail and the dog will just take me, that doesn't happen. So that's an example given in the Bhagavatam. The dog is not of sufficient strength to carry you through the water. So who in this material world can actually carry us through? Even Lord Brahma told Hiranyakashipu, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I can't make you immortal. I can't help you overcome the stringent laws of material nature. You're going to sink just like everyone else. So, but only Krishna can actually help us. And he says that right in the Bhagavad Gita, cross over. I can help you cross over this material nature. So we, intelligent people, want a solution, and they can turn to Krishna, and Krishna is fully qualified. And those different qualifications are given in the purport, also right in the verse itself, that he's there in our heart. He knows everything about us. Sometimes you try to help someone. Sometimes people go to a counselor, a psychologist, psychiatrist or something, and they won't say everything. I've known people who've been in counseling for years, family members and this and that, and we all know the reason they're not being helped is they're not opening up. They're not really telling the whole story, So if you don't tell the whole story, how can someone help you? Because they can't. They're not in your heart. They don't know. But Krishna knows everything. In fact, he not only knows the problems you're aware of, he knows all the problems you've forgotten about. So Krishna knows everything, so he's fully competent to help us, and he's fully powerful to help us. So why not take shelter of Krishna? And there's a few things there. And then, of course, coming to the platform of Shuddha Sattva. That's our endeavor, because up there, it's just like the other day, Mahabharat and I we climbed Coles Mountain. It was a foggy day. It's quite an interesting phenomena. When the fog really pushes all the way into East County, you go up on you're in the fog, and then you actually climb up to 1,400 feet, and it's a sea of fog. You're up above it, and it's nice and sunny. Just like when you take off on an airplane, you actually go above the clouds, so you can actually experience that just climbing that hill. It's wonderful. So everything below, it's in the fog, and then you're up there in the sunshine. You're above it. So even the mode of goodness is some indication, just like when you're climbing the mountain, you start coming out of the fog, you look up and it's like partially foggy, partially blue sky, and then you break through. It's mixed a little bit, then you break through and it's all blue sky and sun. So mode of goodness is like that, almost breaking through, almost breaking through. It's better than being way down there in the fog. But this Vāsudeva or Vishuddha Sattvam, that's what we're trying to, on that platform, and Prabhupada says, he refers to this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, that one who's fully engaged in devotional service, that nasochiti nakangshati, samaksareshu bhuteshu, no hankering, no lamenting, you're seeing all living entities equal. On that platform, you start engaging in devotional service. It explains how Krishna's in the heart of all living entities. So that's what we're aspiring for. And it's a matter that's not artificial. We have to purify our heart. That's our natural condition. You have to purify the heart. Nasta Preshu Abadeshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Every always hearing the Bhagavat, serving the Bhagavat, gradually, all these things will disappear and one will be in pure goodness. And on that platform, one can actually see things as they are and not be worried about the lower modes of material nature. Like that. So, and it probably concludes by talking about Jagat Guru, that one who's really a spiritual master will give the real advice. You know, that this is the actual situation. We're eternal spirit souls, we're in the material world, bewildered by material nature, we should get out, we should engage in devotional service. Our attempt on a daily basis to be happy in this material world is a complete waste of time. How do you like that? Tell that to someone, right? And it can be even when people in a very difficult situation. I was just listening recently to Harisari Prabhu in his Living Bhagavat on Srila Prabhupada, different topics. And he's talking about health, Prabhupada's health and how he dealt with it, and also his advice to devotees. And there's two different accounts there where devotees were more or less dying. I think they're both in Vrindavan at the time. And the mother was asking Prabhupada, and the husband was asking Prabhupada about the wife, chronically ill. And then another one who's just different devotees who are chronically ill and some on the verge of death. And Prabhupada's advice, he wasn't saying, oh, that's too bad. And no, it's just more or less, that's the material world. You have to take shelter of Krishna. What can be done? We have a material body. Sooner or later, it's all just going to fall apart. And you just have to take shelter of Krishna, take shelter of the holy name, just putting it right out there. No, one who doesn't know the soul, what advice do they give? What advice do they give?
Say keep your head up.
Yeah. We'll get through it.
Say you'll live forever in our memory.
Yeah, thanks a bunch. Appreciate that. But there's no real solution. It's just a mental adjustment for some time, but there's no real solution. They don't know of a solution. And the thing is, it's not that, oh, that's happened to that person, but it's not going to happen to this person, it's not going to happen to me. That's the biggest illusion in the material world, right? Hani bhutani. Everyone's going to Yamaraj. And the most amazing thing is, we think we're not going to go. It's pretty far out. We don't think we're going to go, but everyone's going to go. Sooner or later, who's the last one standing? You're standing already, I know that. But in other words, think about it. Everyone in this room is going to die. Who do you think is going to be the last one? Do you ever think about that? You look around devotees and say, we're all going to die. I wonder who's the last one who's going to say, oh, I remember so-and-so, I remember so-and-so, I remember so-and-so, I remember so. And then sooner or later, someone's going to remember them. Right? We're also going to be a memory. I remember that devotee. Oh, that's right, he passed away a few years ago. Isn't that amazing? It's going to happen to all of us. Even Ananda Vrindavan. It's going to happen to him. He just walked in. Put him on the spot. So there's a few things to contemplate. But Jagat Guru, Prabhupada said they have these so-called Jagat Gurus, and they haven't even left the village in India, and somehow they're the Jagat Gurus. They're preaching all over the world. But real Jagat Guru is representing the ultimate Jagat Guru, which is Krishna. And Guru means to lead a person out of the suffering of this material world and bring them back home, back to Godhead. So someone who's doing that is the real Jagat Guru, because they're representative of Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita as it is. So a lot of things to be said, but I'm going to stop speaking here, open it up for comments and questions. There's a lot of things in this purport and verse. Govardhan would like to say something. Why did you switch from your turban to your chadra? You had a lot of attention on you. He asked you to do that?
I'm a copycat.
Okay. So go ahead.
Thank you, Dharmasetu Prabhu. I think Maharaj told me that lifeguards, that's why they have those floaters now, because just in case they grab onto them. So they have those floaters, so they hang onto those, and then the lifeguard swims them out of them.
Yeah. Because it's imagine you're out there and you're panicking. So someone comes around, you grab them and actually try to crawl on top of them. It's a whole thing. So yeah, that's why you have to. It's best if you have one of those floats or something to push, that they grab onto, because it's a very panicky situation.
What if the same happens on Sankirtan?
What do you mean?
You're preaching to someone and they're grabbing you and they pulling you down. You're not ready for this.
Call the police. I don't know. People actually come up and grab you, or you mean emotionally?
Yes, yes.
Emotionally. Yes, you got to watch out for that. That's why I was saying earlier, you have to be careful what you say to people. Be careful what you say to people. But sometimes people are suffering a lot and they can really unload on you. Do you ever have that happen? I mean, you've told us stories of people crying right in front of you, just breaking down and crying. It happens. So you always have to be very, very compassionate and kind and so on. But it's just testament to the fact that the material world is a very rough place. And people, despite the appearance, people are actually inside. They're going through a lot of, especially today, and people, they try to hide it, but all you'd have to do is scratch the surface, or just one little thing. I have one relative, and she's been going through a lot, and she was at the hospital the other day taking care of one of my sister-in-law, and because they weren't seeing her, and there was a problem, and she just lost it. She started yelling and screaming at the receptionist, and said she started bursting into tears, all because of things she's going through, and that just pushed her over the edge. So sometimes people just get pushed over the edge. It's so many difficulties they're going through. So devotees are very, very compassionate, not foolish, but they're very, very compassionate, and actually try to help people, and try to see that the answer they're looking for really is in these books and in the Krishna's instructions. They're there, and try and encourage them to take shelter.
I also wanted to ask about Shuddha Sattva. Is that noticeable, the transition of someone, at least externally, if a person is, the symptoms of, he is experiencing Shuddha Sattva? Is that noticeable to the eyes of an ordinary devotee?
Well, it's interesting as far as trying to understand what level a devotee is on, because I guess that's what you're trying to say.
Because it's such a great difference, as we hear,
Yeah.
So.
And it's a good question, because one has to be very careful, and even there's that, I forget the Sanskrit about, one has to be very careful about judging a Vaishnav. I forget the Sanskrit for that. Yes, because if you're not on that platform, how can you say someone else is on that platform? So one has to be very, very careful. But there are symptoms, and one can see symptoms. They're delineated throughout the scriptures, just like the other day we're reading in the 12th chapter of the Gita, all the things Krishna says, this kind of devotee is very dear to me. That's a very exalted platform that you can say, oh wow, this is amazing. And then, so those are signs of it, but we don't have to walk around with a clipboard with devotees' names on it and click off what level they're on or something like that. Devotees really not that concerned, but you should be able to see those symptoms manifest in a devotee and take shelter of the advanced devotees, that they're on that platform of pure goodness. So yes, but we have to be careful, because our ability to perceive others, atmavan manyate jagat. We see everyone else in the world from our own position, and that's natural, because what else can we see? What else can you see? Right? So I hope that helps.
In this way, we should really think of devotees as, or of ourselves as someone in humility, someone that all the devotees are much more senior, much more advanced.
Trinada pisuni chena torori vasuhishna mahani damaninem. Like that. Always offering respect to others, feeling oneself. Yeah. Always. That's a sign of one's actually very, very advanced. Because just the opposite, one thinks, I'm pretty advanced. Devotees should notice that. In the old days, we used to call it the PD disease. You know what the PD disease is? PD disease. PD disease. Yeah, we in charge of the new Bhakti program for about 8 years. And, you know, someone moves in and about a month later, somehow or other, they're a pure devotee. It's like they just feel like they're a pure devotee. Or when they transition from white to saffron or something like that, it's like, I'm very advanced. Like that. So one has to watch out for that. Like that.
And Shuddha Sattva doesn't mean necessarily that you stop being active in developing the preaching and everything like this. That doesn't mean necessarily that you just
Arjun was
so advanced that
Arjun
you
was
just
Shuddha Sattva. He was completely transcendental, fully devoted to Krishna and pleasing Krishna. He was in a complete mode of pure goodness, and he's shooting arrows into people because he was transcendental. Completely transcendental. But that was his position as a Kshatriya. That was his service to Krishna. So whatever that service is, it may be washing pots for 8 hours straight. Would you like to do that? No, he's an honest man. He's a Brahmin. He's honest. But that's like hard work. But you can be completely pure goodness. You know, or you could be sitting there studying the scriptures. That can be pure goodness too. It just depends upon your nature and the level of your devotion to the Lord. Yes, Ananda Vrindavan Das.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you for a nice lecture. Like you mentioned that, like, of course it's a offense to preach to non-devotees, but at the same time we preach to so many new people. So how to distinguish, and all the new people are nearly non-devotees. So how to distinguish that, okay, to this person I should be preaching and to this person I should be avoiding?
Okay, it's a very good question, and that's answered in the description of the Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam Adhikari given in, it was at 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. Is that the teachings of the Navayogendras? The point is, the Madhyam Adhikari, he sees 4 things. He sees the Supreme Lord, the devotees, the innocent, and then the non-devotees. Those are envious and so on. So he worships the Supreme Lord, keeps association with the devotees, preaches to the innocent, and avoids the envious or the non-devotees. So when you meet the conditioned souls, you have to discriminate those who are innocent and they're sincere and they really want to know something. Preach like anything to them. But those who are not interested, they simply want to argue. You ever meet someone in Sankirtan who simply wants to argue with you? No, it never happens, right? They want to tell you a few things about their life or their religion or this or that. Why are you doing that? They're not innocent. Innocent means submissive, and they want to learn something about Krishna consciousness. They don't know anything. The fact that one doesn't know anything is not a disqualification. It's their mood. Do they really want to understand? Understand. And they're innocent. Preach to them. But those who don't want to understand, they want to waste your time, or they want to criticize you, criticize devotees, criticize Krishna, you don't want anything to do with them. And just fold your hands, and maybe they'll take a little prasadam or something. That's what that means. Those who are offensive, we don't have time. Wait till they come back around, after they're beat up some more by the material nature and they're humbled. And that will happen. That will happen, due course of time. Then you can preach to them then. Okay, so we can end here. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Raja Govinda